Before he lost his sight, he played a few sports, cricket and Aussie rules, which he loved. Tim loved books, loved reading, and we just didn't know how on earth he was going to do that. Timmy was quite small, he was 9 and he had a cane. I was quite blown away by the reaction of people, that they would stare and you felt very exposed.
Once I started to get talking to him a bit more, I realised that he had come from a pretty rough upbringing with school, with bullying, and we've all experienced that with vision impairments, but just something about him, he just has such a big heart and such a soft soul.
Something else I remember about Tim's time here that got me quite down at the time was Tim was at sport one day, and boys being boys, they had twigs and leaves. One of the boys put something in Tim's ear and Tim was quite badly hurt, and that really upset me at the time because just kids not grasping how vital that kind of sense is and things. So that was kind of a memory that I have that is quite strong still because it still makes me quite upset.
The motivation to prove those who doubt you wrong. And I think when you're in a year group where there's a minority that are extremely accepting and a majority that don't really understand, you just get motivated to succeed, and that just added to my determination.
When Tim lost his vision when he was 9, we just didn't know how on earth was he going to learn, how was he going to get through school. They started to talk about the possibility of learning Braille. Basically, that was the best way that he'd be able to read again. Tim learnt with the teachers and they learnt together. The lovely thing was that he could read again.
While you're making adjustments for all kids all the time based on needs, vision impairment is just another kind of thing you've got to look at to think outside the box. And there's lots of things, resources out there that you can go to and use. But it's also kind of working with the student with the skills that they've had and they've learnt. And Tim had a lot on board when he came.
We very much learnt as we went along. His science teacher at Sacred Heart sent us a lot of materials that he had used for that kind of thing. We did a lot of converting of his workbooks into the Braille format so that Tim would be able to access his exams in the best format for him.
I first met Tim in semester 1, 2017. He turned up with his mum and dad. He was quite quiet, quite a shy boy. He didn't really say much in those first interactions. Inclusion and Engagement is a support unit at University of Canberra, and we provide support for students with ongoing health conditions or disabilities. We reduce the impact that their condition or disability has on their ability to access and participate in education.
It's actually great to have students with different abilities coming through because it challenges you to think about, well, how flexible is this unit of study and how ready is it to, be used by people with all sorts of different abilities.
I think Tim, the same as many students, they come to university first semester, they really just spend that whole first semester actually just getting used to the transition from high school or college.
Someone like me who is legally blind, the usual concept that goes with a white cane is you're totally blind. Now, that's not the case because there is so many variants of vision impairment, but that's just because so many people who are sighted don't have the education into our world. The reason really why I chose the psychology degree was I was interested in how people tick. I think really the degree enabled me to see why people would look at someone with a disability the way they do. I think it took me leaving Sacred Heart, leaving my hometown and going to a different school to get new perspectives.
When Timmy went to Hennessy from Sacred Heart, that was quite good because it was like a little stepping stone. He had to catch the bus for the first time, meeting new people, new school. I think it prepared him for uni in a way, but I still think that first, particularly probably 6 months, was quite hard.
We did endeavour to provide Tim with what he wanted, and he did want his textbooks in Braille. Obtaining that was such a lengthy process. There's so many different moving parts. You need to know what the textbook is from the unit convener about 6 months before that semester starts. Then you need to get in touch with the publisher and they have to provide the textbook to you. Then it can take months pretty much to print one book. So we acknowledged that it was his preference and that's how he wanted to learn, but we felt we were almost setting him up to potentially fail because of the lengthy process. So we're providing one-on-one tutoring to really try and ensure that he's not missing and he's not got any gaps with his learning. I think the one-on-one tutoring has been a big benefit to him.
I think the university as a whole felt that he'll maybe have to do an alternate format in the workforce. I possibly disagreed from the point of view that I felt that when you're studying, give him everything that he can have, give him Braille textbooks because that's how you're learning.
He understands he has to work a little bit harder than everybody else, but he's never complained about it. It didn't matter what the setback was. His self-determination really started to shine through.
A lot of the whole course actually has to be thought about. Tim got individual tutors for what wasn't possible. The exams were actually translated into Braille. He would sit beside his tutor and if there was things on the screen that he couldn't see, his tutor would just sort of whisper to him what was going on, so he wasn't missing out on anything.
If Braille was the be and end all of my education, I wouldn't be here, because if that was the only way I could study and it stopped me, then I wouldn't be a semester from finishing, because if I was still waiting for textbooks, I'd probably be still semester 1 of 2018 waiting to do those units way back then.
I met Tim back in 2012 at RADBC in Sydney, so that's the Royal Institution for Deaf and Blind Children. His dad was super keen to get Tim involved in community sports. Tim always mentions me that I was the one that brought him into the sport, but really him competing overseas, being in multiple international, national tournaments for New South Wales Goalball, wearing the green and gold, that's all on him. That's his hard work. Tim's 8-year sporting journey has been incredible to see. If we give the opportunities, he'll flourish with what he gets given. Seeing Tim In his uni journey right now, in all honesty, he has just thrived. He was a very quiet kid, very sort of stand to the side, whereas now he's advocating for himself. He's so intelligent, he puts all his hard work into his uni. He is now proud of who he is.
He is someone that has really grown to be a confident, charismatic individual that is highly respected in our church. Such a charming young man, such an enthusiastic person, and like right from the get-go, I could see him as an inspiration. I could see him as someone who had so much potential. He's got the vision to be able to see things that other people can't.
Tim did have to work a bit harder to get there. He did his year 12 over 2 years, which I think that's a big thing to do because he had to leave behind and watch one peer group graduate and go off and start uni and then come back and do another year. He was very resilient and very determined.
My resilience was just in there because that was just who I became. I got that through teaching young vision impaired kids at Braille camp. I think teaching them and being a mentor to younger vision impaired kids enabled me to go, okay, you're someone they're going to look up to, you're someone who other parents are going to want to get your experience, bounce things off yourself and your parents, so you're going to have to be the role model that they can follow after.
I'm incredibly proud of Tim in terms of what he was able to achieve here and then what he's done since he's moved on. As I said, he's very self-motivated. The fact he's into his last semester of university, he's chasing the goals and the things that he wants to do.
It's really rewarding to know that you've helped in some small ways.
He's a great fella and he's done great things and he continues to do great things. I'm just humbled to be part of his story that does matter.
With being down at university in Canberra now and having the supports with, UFit and being on a sporting scholarship, I think has just allowed him to see himself for what we see him as. We see him, as a very confident, someone that has a lot of potential.
He's definitely a role model to other students.
It's been a year of firsts for Tim. Yeah, he's done really well. We're very proud of him.
Tim's story is, in many ways, the story of all students because every student is unique. Now, some people's uniqueness might be a bit more obvious, but every student is unique, has unique strengths and weaknesses, and a university education is there to sort of explore those and embrace those.
After UC, the first goal is try and get into the graduate program with the Department of Defence, growing as a person, whether it be on the sporting field with goalball, relationships with my friends. Obviously for any single bloke, it's eventually get a girlfriend, eventually get to have a fiance, married, the usual stuff, have a family.
You can learn new places quite easily if you take the time, but it's getting the relationships with other people